So, what if I told you that the biggest thing stopping you from getting rich wasn't your job or the economy or your bank account, but what's going on right inside your own head? That is the absolutely revolutionary idea behind Napoleon Hill's classic Think and Grow Rich. Honestly, this thing is less of a book and more of a user's manual for your mind, showing you how your thoughts can create real, tangible wealth. So in this explainer, we're going to boil down its core philosophy.
All right, the book kicks off with a really radical idea, one that's the foundation for everything else Hill talks about. Thoughts are things. Now let's really dig into what he meant by that.
Napoleon Hill starts with this kind of startling observation. He says that when wealth finally shows up, it often comes in so fast and in such huge amounts that people are left scratching their heads, wondering where it was all this time. But Hill's point is, this isn't luck. Not at all. It's the direct result of a very specific mental shift.
And he had a name for this shift: thought transmutation. The whole principle is that your thoughts, they aren't just passive daydreams floating around. They're a form of energy. And if you have the right method, you can take an intangible thought, a desire, an impulse, and literally transform it into its physical counterpart. We're talking money, success, you name it.
So what's the fuel for this whole process? Well, Hill calls it a burning desire. And let's be clear, he's not talking about a simple wish or a vague hope. He means a definite, pulsating obsession that completely takes over your mind. Before you make a single plan, before you take any action, this white-hot desire, that's the absolute non-negotiable starting point.
Okay, so you have this burning desire. Great. Now what? How do you actually channel that into real-world results? Well, this is where Hill's philosophy stops being philosophy and becomes a practical blueprint. He lays out this surprisingly concrete 6-step formula to turn that desire into actual riches.
Okay, so here's the formula. First, you have to get specific. Fix the exact amount of money you want, down to the dollar. No fuzziness allowed. Second, figure out exactly what value you're going to give in return, because there's no such thing as something for nothing. Third, lock in a definite date. Fourth, create a specific plan and, this is so important, begin at once. Like right now, don't wait. Fifth, write it all down. A clear, concise statement. And finally, step 6, and this is the real kicker. Read that statement out loud twice a day, morning and night. And as you read it, you have to see, feel, and believe you already have the money. This isn't just wishful thinking. It is a powerful way to program your subconscious mind for success.
This whole mindset, it requires a certain kind of toughness. Once that plan is in motion, there is absolutely no room for excuses. As Hill puts it so bluntly, success requires no apologies, failure permits no alibis. What he's really saying is that the world just gets out of the way for the person who acts with total purpose and knows exactly where they're going.
All right, so having a plan is one thing, but you still need the right tools to build it. Hill says there are 2 essential components in what he calls the mind's workshop. That's specialized knowledge and a powerful imagination.
Hill makes a really powerful distinction here. He says that general knowledge, the kind you cram for in school, has pretty much little to no value when it comes to building wealth. What really matters is specialized knowledge, knowledge that you get and organize for a very specific purpose. As he says, knowledge is only potential power. It doesn't become real power until you shape it into a concrete plan of action.
And you want to know who is a master of this? Henry Ford. During a trial, some lawyer tried to call him ignorant. Well, Ford famously shot back that he didn't need to clutter his own mind with a bunch of facts. He said he had a row of push buttons on his desk and he could summon experts who could answer any question he had. The takeaway is huge. A truly educated person isn't someone who knows everything, but someone who knows where to get the knowledge they need right when they need it.
And imagination, well, that's the workshop where you forge all that specialized knowledge into actual plans. Hill breaks it down into 2 types: synthetic, which is basically rearranging old ideas into new combinations, and creative, which he believed was like a hotline to the universe, bringing you flashes of inspiration and those gut feelings or hunches. This is literally where the blueprint for your fortune gets drawn up.
Okay, even with the absolute best plan and the most vivid imagination, there's still one major enemy that can sabotage the entire thing. Hill calls it the ghost of fear. And believe me, he dedicates a huge chunk of his philosophy to understanding and mastering it.
And he forces us to get real and ask this question. He basically argues that the obstacles keeping us from success, they're rarely on the outside. Nope, they're internal. They are states of mind.
So, Hill identified what he called the 6 basic fears. He believed these are at the root of almost every single failure: the fear of poverty, of criticism, of ill health, of losing love, of old age, and finally, the fear of death. And he warns that these fears are just toxic. They paralyze your ability to think, they destroy your imagination, and they kill your ambition before you even get started.
This quote comes from one of the most famous stories in the entire book, the story of 3 Feet from Gold. See, a guy named R.U. Darby and his uncle, they gave up on their gold mine. They sold it for peanuts. The person they sold it to, he brought in an engineer who found that the vein of gold was just 3 feet from where the Darbys had stopped drilling. It's such a powerful story about how temporary defeat, fueled by fear, makes us quit right before the big breakthrough. The only antidote is just pure, unwavering persistence.
So if we can really turn our thoughts into reality, and we can conquer our deepest fears, what does all of that ultimately mean? Well, Hill leaves us with this really profound conclusion about who's actually in the driver's seat.
I'm sure you've heard these famous lines before from the poem Invictus. They're incredibly powerful, right? But Hill adds this one crucial piece of context that completely transforms them, from just a nice sentiment into a practical tool for living your life.
And here it is. This is the ultimate takeaway of the entire philosophy. We are the masters of our fate for one simple, powerful reason: because we have the absolute, undeniable power to control our own thoughts. And if your thoughts create your reality and you're the only one who can direct them, well, then you truly are the captain of your soul.
By mastering your mind, you master your destiny. The choice, as Hill reminds us again and again, is entirely yours. So the only question left to ask is this one right here: what thought will you choose to build your reality?